If you want to be good at life, you need to be able to face the unknown and go for it. And what we see from research on quarter-life crisis and midlife crisis is people who go through the period of uncertainty almost always end up happy afterward. And if you really talk to these people, the biggest thing they're concerned about is, even if I make this shift, there's no guarantee that I will be happy. The concept of starting your life over at 28. I did it at 25. It's literally never too late to do what makes you happy. This is going to take 3 years. The time will pass anyway. So a lot of people end up usually sometime early in their 20s, but sometimes later, thinking that we got to restart life, right? And then like when I talk to people like this, they're kind of living these lives where they're not like super thrilled, but the thought of restarting life, and you can tell even in the word, right? Restart. It implies that you're starting over from zero. So I want to tunnel down into something weird. We're going to talk about that word restart. Why, when you're thinking about making a change in your life, one human being may say, hey, I want to make a change. I want to make an improvement. But another human being will pick the word restart. Why do they pick that word? So your brain chooses words that are appropriate to your brain's conception of the situation. So if I talk to people who are worried about restarting their life, what are the features of restarting? Starting over from zero. That there's a lot of effort, right? I'm looking at 3 years out. I'm only 25 years old. I've been an adult for like 7 years. And you're telling me that I have to spend 50%, I have to invest 50% of the energy that I've spent being an adult to start over from square one. So the key thing about restarting your life is that your brain perceives a lot of effort. Does that make sense? It's a lot of work. And not only is a lot of work, at the end of the work, I'm going to start over from zero. And then people will say like, look, you're going to be 3 years older anyway. You might as well like make your change now because like, you know, like well, you don't want to 3 years later, like you don't want to be like unhappy, right? If you're unhappy now, you'll be unhappy when you're 3 years from now. So you might as well make the change, you know, rip it off like a Band-Aid. But I think that's easy to tell someone. But we have to remember that there's a lot of data that shows that human beings like adapt to their circumstances, right? So my favorite study about this is you can ask a human being, if there was an accident and you lost all 4 of your limbs, would you rather survive with no limbs or just die? And most human beings would say, I would rather die than survive without any limbs. Something interesting happens. Once that accident happens, if that accident happens to people, and then you give them a couple of years, and then you take people who are quadriplegic or missing limbs or whatever, like disabled in some way, and then you ask them, are you glad to be alive today? The majority of them say, yes, this is great. I'm so glad I didn't die. This is awesome. Life is wonderful. I've learned so much. Like, it's crazy. So human beings adapt. And so this idea, the first thing that I want to talk about is this idea of like, okay, my life is shitty now. Why do we just keep going? That's because like we adapt, right? So there's a chance, fingers crossed, that things will get better. Maybe the economy will change. Maybe I'll switch jobs. Maybe I can like continue in this general track and things will get better. And if you really talk to these people, the biggest thing they're concerned about is, even if I make this shift, there's no guarantee that I will be happy, right? So you're telling me I got to invest years of my life to make this big change, start over from zero. But what if I'm unhappy there? What if I'm carrying my unhappiness with me? Why would I restart when there's like no guarantee that things will work out? I think that's what I want. So this is what's really interesting. If we look at people who are hesitating to restart their life, there are some changes within their brain. Absolutely fascinating. So there's some people who are like okay making changes, right? So like people who are okay to change, people who are not okay to change. And like, what's the difference? So this can be relationships, it can be careers, like what's the difference? Turns out, chances are their brains are different. So the first thing is the amygdala, okay? So your amygdala is what perceives threat. It makes a calculation about risk. So this perception of threat in people who are not okay to change, don't want to change, I'm scared to restart my life. They actually perceive a greater amount of threat. So this is amplified. So if I ask you, okay, if you change your career, what are the chances that things will go wrong? This person will say the chances are actually really high. This person will say the chances are low. Second thing that's different, anterior insula. This is fascinating. This generates gut feelings. So have you ever thought about this? How you make decisions? Most of the time, we make decisions based on gut feelings. You may say that's not true, but I just want y'all to think about it, right? So if you're like, oh, do I feel like eating this or do I feel like eating this? Where does it just like get some signal from me in here? Just like, let me do this. You want to get this game? Do I not want to get this game? It's on Steam sale. Let me just get it. Do I want to switch to a different stream? Do I want to finish this video? Do I want to listen to this guy blabbing? I don't think so. Okay. So here's the crazy thing. People who are not okay to change have a hyperactive anterior insula. So their sensitivity, the amount of gut feelings that they get is actually higher. And if you think about what causes you to not want to change, right? So logically, you're like, you're going to be 3 years older anyway, and you're unhappy now. Just change. It's smart. Like, be happy at 28 instead of unhappy at 28. Easy. No problem. Time is going to pass. There's no way to get around it. Super logical, but that's not the way that their mind, that's not even mind. Yeah, mind. Their anterior insula perceives all of these like gut feelings that make them hesitate, usually in the negative direction. And if you think about danger, by the way, right? So what is your subjective experience of danger? It is a gut feeling. So these two things are synergistic. You have more gut feelings, and the threat, when you have a gut feeling, your amygdala freaks out every time you have it. So this synergizes. This is the devastating one. Striatum, altered reward prediction. What is the benefit that you will gain from restarting your life? Low. So this person over here the reward prediction that these people will experience will be lower. So not only is there a greater threat, feels wrong, but the likelihood that things will work out will be lower. Changing your life isn't easy. When I was flunking out of college, I had to travel all the way to an ashram in India to begin a 7-year journey to put my life back together. Unfortunately, that option isn't available to everyone. That's why I've taken most of what I've learned, distilled it into the most important points, not just from India, but also my years of training as a psychiatrist, into our coaching program. Coaches will help you set appropriate goals, maintain motivation, and hold you accountable. Thousands of people from all over the world have tried HG coaching and have seen sustained improvements in purpose and direction in life, and even reductions in feelings of depression and anxiety. So if you're interested in putting your life together but don't have 7 years to wander around India, definitely check out HG Coaching. If you are someone who is hesitating to restart your life, you may be hesitating because, this is going to sound kind of weird, you're wrong. You're wrong about the possible benefits. You're wrong about the possible threats. And this is like, I'm not saying that you're wrong categorically. What I'm saying, what I want y'all to understand is that your brain is making calculations. But what if your calculating instrument is not functioning in a typical way? Right? Then all of the calculations you're making are going to be potentially incorrect, or we're amplifying certain variables, reducing other variables. Okay. And here's kind of like where we sort of know that if you do this, like, you know, like things are actually going to be okay. The majority of, I mean, I don't know about data, but I haven't looked at a study, but I would imagine this is true. But if you look at like, you know, is 26 too late to start over your life after horrendous 4 years during the pandemic, crush your dreams, and even though you were doing everything that was so close? So I want y'all to like look at this. What do you think this person's reward prediction circuitry is doing? What do you think, what is the amount of gut feelings that they're experiencing? What do you think is their threat perception? Like we don't know anything about this person. But it's crazy, right? Like you can read this and we can at least develop a hypothesis. This does not sound like someone whose reward prediction is like accurate, or maybe it is, who knows? The other thing is, let me see if, yeah. So how many times have you had to restart your life? There's this evolve part. We'll talk about that. But this person says fire, flood, and divorce, getting pretty good at starting over now that I realize that nothing lasts forever. So if we look at most human beings, when they restart their life, they end up okay. 50% of people get divorced. They're not crippled for the rest of their life, right? 50 to 60% of, I think 50% of people who get divorced, ballpark, it's probably between 30 and 70. I don't know the statistics, get remarried, right? So we think things are going to like cripple us. They don't. If you restart your life, chances are things are okay. And I understand why it's hard, right? Because we have this perception. So let's talk about this. We have this perception that if I restart my life, I have to start over from zero. I don't think that's true. I think restarting your life may even give you an advantage in the second run. Because let's remember that you're not really starting over from zero. Your brain may think you're starting over from zero, but you carry over all of your previous skill set and experience. I spent 7 years becoming a monk, studying to become a monk. And then I left and I started med school at the age of 28. I finished residency training at the age of 36. That's pretty late to like finish school. But did those 7 years of being a monk mean that in a sense I'm starting over from zero, but they actually give me a competitive advantage in psychiatry? So here's the really crazy thing. What I've noticed about people who switch careers have an advantage over people who are not in that career. You have a separate set of skills, which if you can bring into your new career are really helpful. I see this a lot with the entrepreneurs that I work with. I love this. Being a psychiatrist is fucking OP in the field of entrepreneurship. Your ability to understand people, your ability to manage boards and understand narcissism and ego. Like, can you imagine, like, when you're on, like, I have a buddy who's also in the startup world, and, you know, he was telling me things are really bad with their board. Like, their board is really upset. They're really upset. And like, you know, everything is like tense. But like, if you have training in couples therapy, you have training in conflict resolution, you have training in understanding narcissism, ego, and defense mechanisms, if you have the ability to hold people's negative emotions instead of react to them, it is so OP in the business world. So even if you're starting over, I don't think you're really starting over. And I think a big part of it is that, like, it's so hard, right? So like, if you're a psychiatrist, it's like, if you're in business, it's hard to go to medical school and learn psychiatry. Like, that's hard to do, but it's easier. Like, so whatever you did in the past can carry forward. Okay. Now, what it comes down to, so if we look at this constellation, this basically boils down to one thing, or I'm simplifying it. It doesn't really boil down to it. So there is something called a transdiagnostic factor called intolerance to uncertainty. What is a transdiagnostic factor? A transdiagnostic factor. So up here we have diagnoses, mental illnesses. We have things like depression, we have anxiety, we have OCD. But if I look at like your thought process, or if I look at your genetics and stuff like that, there's some correlations with OCD. But what we know about these illnesses at the top is they are built on a foundation of mental processes. And those mental processes, a couple of good ones, or a couple of good examples are rumination. So rumination is turning a thought over in your head over and over, cyclical thinking in a repetitive nature. Now, thinking in a repetitive nature is not an illness, but if you think in a repetitive nature, are you more likely to be depressed? Absolutely. Because once you start thinking negative thoughts, they repeat. Are you more likely to be anxious? Absolutely. Now I'm worried about this, and I keep worrying about it over and over again. So do you all see how like rumination is a foundational way that your mind works, which predisposes you to a particular set of mental illnesses? It's like, that's the real risk factor. In studies, we did a whole video about this, but studies that show that if you target rumination directly, you don't even treat someone's depression, you just treat their rumination. Their depression improves just as much as if you treated the depression directly. Really fascinating. So there's another transdiagnostic factor called intolerance to uncertainty. And what is that? It's like, I don't know if this makes sense, but if you guys are worried about restarting your life, you'll understand this. You have a friend. Your friend, this fucking guy or this fucking girl, like, oh my God, dude. They're like, yeah, I'm going to take a gap year and I'm going to travel the world. And they're like, but you're like, but what are you going to do after that? I don't know. Life will happen. Life is just a journey, bro. Just enjoy it. And it's like, how are you going to pay your fucking rent, man? Like, what do you mean you're just going to, yeah, I'm going to just, I don't know. Like, I'm going to, like, I'm not feeling like this relationship is working for me anymore. So I'm going to just like leave it. But it's like, dude, there's like a dating and mating crisis. Like online dating is such a mess. Like, how are you going to meet someone else? I don't know. I'm going to just live life. I'm going to just go, I'm going to float. And these fucking people, like they exist, you know them, right? And here's the crazy thing. We like to think that these people suck at life. We want to say, we really want to say Yeah, if you don't worry about this stuff, then you get punished for it. If you don't think about how to pay your rent, you end up fucking homeless. If you just like leave this relationship and just go through life like not thinking about it, like you end up alone. But here's the fucking crazy thing. They don't end up alone. They don't end up broke. They don't end up hopeless. Like some of the time they do, but a lot of the time they don't. And sometimes, this is the most infuriating thing, sometimes they seem to fall ass backwards into amazing opportunities. Do you all know people like this? Have you guys like met people like this where it's like they have no plan, they're just floating through life and they just fucking get lucky over and over and over again? Am I crazy here or are you guys okay? Me. I am that person, bitch. Get wrecked, shitties. All right, because they live in the moment, right? And they're like, oh yeah, like live in the moment, bruh. I live in the moment. But it's like, no, dude, like I don't know, like live in the moment, but like how do you plan for the future? So here's the crazy thing. These people have a high tolerance to uncertainty. Some people have a low tolerance to uncertainty. Now this is where things get hard because this is going to be the ultimate mindfuck. Okay? So I'm going to try to explain this, but it's hard. I don't know how to do it well. So when you look at human beings who have intolerance to uncertainty, they have these changes in their brain, right? So let's understand this. If my life is a big question mark, how does my brain interpret that? There is a potential threat that gets amplified. Gut feelings, I'm really worried that this could happen, this could happen, this could happen, this could happen, right? That then amplifies the threat. And my rewards are predicted as lower. Y'all get this? Make sense? So like we're not going to move because when we're unsure of what's going on, the picture looks bleak. Therefore, there is no movement forward. We're just going to stay right here. No moving. Just sit. Continue to suffer, right? So here's the crazy thing. Not only do they have intolerance to uncertainty, the way that we try to fix the uncertainty messes us up. And this is going to fucking blow your mind, blew mine. I don't know if it's going to blow yours because I don't know if I can explain it well. So bear with me. So when we don't know what's going to happen, right? So our uncertainty level is high. What do we do? Chat, what do y'all do when you don't know what's going to happen? For those of y'all that are wondering whether you should restart your life or not, what do y'all do? Okay, some of y'all say nothing. We're going to get to that. That's the real answer. Overthink. Good. Overthink. Excellent. What else? What else? What else? What else? What else? Come on. I'm looking for one answer. Read my mind, chat. Overplan. Good. We're getting there. Find a solution. Oh, there it is. That's the problem. Love it. Find a solution. This is what messes us up. Okay, so this is so hard. I'm going to try, okay, chat? Give me like 2 shots at this. I got to do and I got to redo. Number 1, our brain has a fundamental, like the North Star of a brain, not even our brain, all living organisms, is to reduce prediction errors. When I make a prediction, if that prediction is wrong, I die. If that prediction is right, I live. Like, literally. Like, so if we look at like an amoeba, like let's say I'm a little amoeba and I got my little organelles, right? And I got my little pili or whatever the fuck. And I'm like, oh, there's food this way and there is a predator this way. So I make a prediction. Going this way, good. Going this way, bad. If I make that prediction wrong and I end up, oh no, the predator is over here. If that prediction is wrong, I get eaten. Right? So this reward prediction error, the more we predict incorrectly, the worse off we are. So, okay, now comes the hard part, uncertainty. So my goal is to reduce the gap between expectation and reality. I want this gap to be 0. So remember, here are the things that y'all do. We're going to understand why this happens, but this is like so hard to explain. Okay, so what the human organism wants to do is we want this gap to be 0. Okay, so if I am perceiving a threat and if I'm perceiving low reward, okay, how do I bring these gaps to 0? God, I hope you guys get this. Because if you get this, it's going to be great. How do I reduce these gaps to 0? Come on, chat. Y'all can do it. I believe in you. Beautiful. Stop expecting. Good. Do nothing. Excellent. Do nothing. If I expect low reward, how do I reduce the gap? I do nothing. I do nothing. Because being wrong is dangerous. Being right and doing shit is safer. Avoidance. This is where avoidance comes from. Avoidance. Do nothing. The other thing that we do is we collect information. We collect information to refine our predictions. So I'm going to collect information, right? So there's doing nothing. So we got that one. Good job, right? But what about these? Overthink, overplan, and find a solution. There's a threat, so I'm going to think. I'm going to refine my expectation. I'm going to refine my expectation. I'm going to refine my expectation, okay? So the more that I refine my expectation, the more information that I collect, what I'm trying to do is reduce the uncertainty. Y'all get that? So if I don't know, let's say I redo my career, am I going to end up happy or am I going to end up sad? I don't know. So I'm going to collect info, collect info, collect info. Now here's the problem. As I collect info, oh shit, this is happy or happy. That's actually what happens, by the way, right? So people will say, so as I collect info, I try to zero in on what actually happens. This is true. Here's the problem. As I collect info, I know this is going to sound so weird, I reduce my uncertainty, okay? Now, let's see if y'all get this. So I now reduce my uncertainty. Why is reducing your uncertainty a problem? This is now very hard, okay? This one I think will make sense because y'all have gotten this far. But why is reducing this uncertainty a problem? What is the core problem here? What is this person's core problem? What is the transdiagnostic factor, chat? Yes, lowering your tolerance. Fuck yeah, who are you, dude? Hold on. Shegrasol and protoxis. And I know other people, I'm sure, are saying it, but I can't read everything from both chats. Here's the problem. You are not building up your intolerance to uncertainty. You're making the problem go away. So here's the thing. If you want to be good at life, you need to be able to face the unknown and go for it. Like, that's the skill. The intolerance to uncertainty is the transdiagnostic factor that leads to mental illness, that leads to OCD, that leads to anxiety. Oh my God, I don't know if he likes me or he doesn't like me. Let me ask him. Let me ask his friends. Let me ask his mom. Let me ask him again. Let me ask him again. Let me ask him again. Let me ask. He said yes the first 6 times, but maybe he's thinking no today. I don't know what's going to happen. Is my professor going to like it or are they not going to like it? Let me beg. Let me plead. Let me cry. Let me do this. Let me make sure that they like it. Professor, did you like it? Did you like it? Let me get my friend to read it. Let me get my mom to read it. Let me get the TA to read it. Let me get everyone to read it. Let me just do all this stuff. That is the source of suffering. The ability to tolerate. If you want to restart your life, you need to be able to tolerate the unknown. It's okay that it's the unknown. And here's the really crazy thing. The unknown is where the good stuff is. Okay, so let me explain this, okay? Bear with me. How did you end up in the position of being 26 years old and wanting to restart your life? What was the strategic meta that you were using? You were like, I'm going to figure out all the answers. I'm going to become engineer. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do everything right. I'm going to play it safe. I'm going to do this. And then you end up 26 years old. You've got a decent job. Maybe you make 100K, but you're like fucking miserable every day. You made some kind of calculation to get you here. And that calculation was safe. There's also a bunch of evidence about something called premature closure. So oftentimes what we do is like, I'm an 18-year-old kid and then I decide on a career, but I haven't really tried anything. So I kind of put all my eggs in one basket. I study engineering. I go to college. After the college, I get a job. I didn't really like my classes. I wasn't really super excited about it. Some people were super excited about it. I was super like envious of them, but that's not really what I did. But like, now I'm on this track. So let me just move forward. Let me just move forward. Let me just move forward. Does that make sense? Now, here's the cool thing. When you plunge into the unknown, you are actually collecting data. You're not deciding ahead of time, this is the career that I want, and fingers crossed, I hope I like it, but you don't know what you like because you haven't tried anything, because you haven't explored anything. Premature closure happens when there's a lack of exploration. Where does exploration happen, chat? In the unknown. Like, you can't explore unless there's unknown. So this is the crazy thing. When you plunge into the unknown, this is not a bad thing. This is a great thing. See, if I decide ahead of time, hamburgers are my favorite food, I'm never going to try anything ever again. Like, that's a terrible way to live life. Instead, the right way to figure out what kind of food you want is to explore. There's uncertainty. The first time you try sushi, maybe you'll think it's disgusting. The first time you try oysters, maybe you'll think it's disgusting. That very uncertainty of that negative thing is the information that leads you to a fulfilling end. The uncertainty is like, it's the way you figure out. If you know ahead of time, then you're making decisions, but you don't actually know, so those decisions are going to be bad. You have to plunge into the uncertainty. And as you move into the uncertainty with kind of like blind about it, but like, I don't really know what's going on, that's when we discover, okay, this is what I like. This is what I don't like. And then something really cool happens. once you discover what you like, then you start to build a life in accordance with that, right? So I don't know if this makes sense, but this is going to be like so simple, but maybe it doesn't make. Once I try sushi, hot dogs, hamburgers, pizza, chapati, sambar, dosa, fried rice, chicken feet. Once I try all those things, then I know what I like. Then I can be like, yeah, I'm not so into chicken feet. Let's go eat sushi. And then the gratification in your life starts to climb because you know what you like and you know what you don't like. But the only way to get there is through uncertainty. And so as we try to reduce our uncertainty by figuring things out and doing research, and I'm not saying that you should like never get information from the outside, by the way, right? What I'm saying though is that there should be an exploration component. And what we see from research on quarter life crisis and midlife crisis is people who go through the period of uncertainty almost always end up happy afterward. And that's what we see right here, which is like at some point, right, I realize that nothing lasts forever and I get pretty good at it. Like 74, maybe 8 times, 7, maybe 8. I'm 74, very content now. Like this is crazy. Money is still a worry, whatever, but I'm happy when I wake up in the morning. That's how you get there. This person, the number of times that you restart your life correlates with how happy you are. Like I restarted my life like 6 times. Okay, restart number 1. Degenerate, became a gamer. That was the number 1. Number 2, monk. Number 3, doctor. Number 4, streamer. Number 5, entrepreneur. Number 6, I don't know exactly what, right? So you got to restart if you want to be happy. Dad, yeah, right? So absolutely restart. You'll be better for it. Hey y'all, hope you enjoyed today's video. We talk about a bunch of topics like this on the channel, so be sure to subscribe for more. If you're already subscribed, GG, and we'll see you in chat.